Lineup, back to you.
All right. Well, I'm going to throw it right back to you because next up is our speaker. You want to introduce Eric?
Well, as everybody knows, it's December, so you can pretty much set your calendar that we're going to get an update from Illicraft. I think Wayne was here last year, but Eric's back, and he's going to talk to us about all kinds of cool stuff in the last year. Questions and answered, I believe. If you have a lot of questions, he's got answers. So I'll give the mic to you and take it away.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot, Rob. And make sure I don't feedback in front of the speakers here. For demo, it's pretty simple. I'm going to show off our little K40. This is a production unit now versus I think I had a prototype here before when I came by. Or I showed you one of the K4 to K4 things, but now it's fully working and shipping, which is sort of cool. But thanks for having me back. This is always fun. You guys keep me alert with good questions. Last time I think I was exhausted after all the questions. We'll see how we do tonight. I want to give you guys a quick update rather than putting slides up on it and putting you to sleep with PowerPoint. I'm just going to read one slide here too so I can remember what I was saying. I may have to put my glasses on for this. Hold on a second. Getting old is really tough. Yeah, it sure does. The ham radio helps too. Keeps you young and keeps your brain active too. I'll tell you mine's been very active for the last 26 years on this stuff. K40 is in production. We're shipping. We had any K40 customers still waiting for K40s in this crowd at all or not? We did have a production hold on it a couple weeks back. We had a little surprise from our friends at Texas Instruments with one of their chips misbehaving. It came down to about 5 guys writing the data sheet and not talking to each other. One of those fun deals. Those of you that are design engineers know how that works. So I stopped everything and we quickly had a few field failures on it. This is in the power regulation circuit and stuff, the regulators and stuff. And all fixed now, which is good. So we're turning it back on. So I was a little nervous this week because we had all of them pass except one, but we figured out there was something missing in it and we fixed that and it was up and running. So we got a bunch out there now, but also they'll be going out the door. It looks like starting Monday or Tuesday back in volume. So people that have been waiting for a while will be getting those. So that's in production, shipping to customers, and they're working great. I'll show this off a little bit functionally. I've actually got, well, I'll talk about it in more detail in a little bit because I don't want to take my fire away from that. Our regular products, unlike with after COVID, where we were months and months and months, in some cases a year backlogged on getting parts and things like that. We're in stock almost everything on that stuff. It typically ships either from off the shelf to 2 weeks after order. Of course, we had the Black Friday and we came out a week early to surprise you guys, and people started ordering and they kept ordering. So we've got a lot of backlog, but not horribly. We should be caught up in the next couple of weeks. So we had everything sort of pre-stocked for that in anticipation, and actually it exceeded our expectations. So I had to bring in a few more production runs of stuff, but we're getting those out quickly. So the K4, K4D, KPA 1500, KPA 500, KXPA 100, that's our 100-watt amp that you can drive with any 5-watt radio or 10-watt one and get to 100 watts, also with a built-in auto tuner. And of course, the KH1, I think I saw somebody here. Wave your hand if you back there. She's got one of our little KH1 handheld CW rigs. Those are shipping. And of course, and the KX2s, KX3s, all of those are, like I said, up to stock to 2 weeks. I have one of my engineering lab units of the KHDR4. That's the last add-on for the K4 and K4D, of course. What that does is get you another, 15 dB to 18 dB of blocking dynamic range. That's desense immunity for those of you that have operated 2 meters when your friend pulls up next to you in their car and your receiver just goes dead because they're transmitting 600 kilohertz away and overwhelming your front end. Same thing happens on HF. You just don't know what happened, except the signals aren't there. So when you're at a contest or field day especially, it's nice to have that extra 10 dB or so, or 15 dB. So that's working great. We're getting it between 140 and 145 dB of blocking dynamic range, which is nothing to shake your head at. So we're pretty happy with that. So that will be out here pretty quick. I've got some crystal filters I'm waiting for from a company up in Canada, which I'm waiting for those to arrive, but we'll be getting those out pretty soon. Other fun stuff. I don't know if this was out last time I was here. We have a developer over in Germany that's done software for iOS and on the Mac and on the iPad for a remote control for the K4 also. And that's called K4 Control. So if you go in the App Store, you can pick that up and if you want to have a K4, you can control it right away from wherever you are. It's nice doing the couch portable on demand that way. I've done that a few times. And WinFur K4. Anybody familiar with WinFur K3 or any this stuff? This is from Tom, VA2 FSQ up in Canada. He's had this for the K3 for a long time, but he also developed this for the K4. He's now, it was sort of a desktop incorporating, integration with all logging programs and spectral display and so on. But now he's got it set with streaming audio for remote streaming pan adapter. We gave him any developer access to our protocol for that, so people can develop for it. So you'll see a lot of fun stuff like that out there, not just from us, which is neat. And lastly, sort of fun, for the ultimate remote operation, anybody DXers in here? Chase DX a little bit. Are you familiar with the 3D2Z, the expedition? I think it was to Rotuma recently. There was another one also down to Saba Island recently. Both of those have what they call RIBs, remote in-box radios, that are sponsored by the Northern California DX Foundation. So thank you, Shakely, and a few other people that put money in that over the years ago, way back. They sponsor a lot of these. So what they're doing is they're taking K4s with them now, also some K3s too, that they had done before. They're inside a complete, integrated system, ruggedized and so on. They can put it on the beach, fire it up, and put it on the antennas and stuff. And you can have guest operators from here being part of the DX expedition. And they're doing that, especially for newer ops. Doesn't matter if you're young or old, but newer ops also they're encouraging. Greg W6IZT is one of the coordinators on that. He's pretty active on the internet. You'll find him on various forums and stuff. He's based out of Atlanta, though he grew up in the Bay Area, because I knew him when I was a kid, 14 years old, my ham radio license. So he's still around and actually has less hair than me, so I feel pretty good about that. So that's saying a lot, actually. In any case, that's all the update stuff on the front side there. What I wanted to do is give a little demonstration to you on the K40, just so you can see how easy it is to use. We've actually got a screen capture on it, and he's going to switch over to me. We have to get a little creative because his switcher doesn't seem to like the output from us, or vice versa. We're not sure. I use the same family of those at work, so I'll double check that when I get back. It's probably something simple, but let me get back out of this screen real quick here. So this is basically a small portable head remote control unit for a K4. It has exactly the same front panel. Do we have any K4 owners in the room here yet, or a few of you? Okay, got some. I know you. And that has exactly the same display on here. So the goal was to give you the exact same feel, and I challenge you, close your eyes and then open them up and just start playing with it. You'll feel like you're right in front of your radio, even though the one we'll be controlling here is either at my house in Aptos, where I live, Rio Del Mar, or Brandon Hansen, who writes a large amount of the code that goes inside the K4, moved from Salinas up to Redding during the COVID. And he has up there in the most ideal ham radio spot you can imagine. He's about an hour to an hour and a half west of Redding. Do you know where Ego is? Anybody up there? IGO, small town. Keep going that direction past that into the hills, and he's got about 10 acres in the hills. It's a lot cheaper up there than it is down here, certainly. There's no power lines, no telephone lines, nothing making noise, no neighbors with plasma screens or other noise making sources. I frequently have my station, which is not a giant one, but I've got a 60-foot or 50-foot tower on the side of a hill about a mile from the ocean, so it works well. Set by our antenna, 4-element one. I'll be on 20 meters listening to someone, and of course it's also different because it's geographically different in terms of who's going to be louder at whose house. But what's really interesting is a lot of times I'll tune his station in, and the stations just sound incredibly louder than my house. I go to my house and I'm hearing them, and they have good signal level. They're S5, S7, S9. But my noise floor, of course, is 10 or 15 dB higher than his noise floor. It's amazing how different it is. We can even play with that here if we find some stations I can switch back and forth between the two. It's pretty eye-opening. So he'll have an S4 station or 5 station that sounds as good as an S9 station to me, for instance. It's nice having that kind of thing. So I worked somebody from the office today. It was in POTA somewhere in the Midwest, and that was sort of cool. So I did it once for my station and once for his station. So confused the heck out of the operator. I said, how did they move your location so fast? I said, well, I bounced between the two. By the way, when you're operating remote, you have to pretty much say, obviously for contesting purposes, the transmitter site is where you are. It's not where you're talking on this long extension cord to your microphone. But so what I've got here, we putting this on the screen now. So this is just a copy of the K4 screen. So this is coming out fine. I think it was just your box for the mixing of the stuff that didn't like us. And I guess you've got that on the Zoom stuff also. Do you get the camera on it? Something like that. Yeah, pretty close. Okay, apologize if it's not perfect. I like this when you can capture it directly. I started using these same little video mixers when I was doing COVID stuff in my basement originally, with sheets hanging up and hiding the dirty part of my Radio Shack, and then eventually from the conference room at work, we do them frequently. I take over the conference room and push all the tables off to the side and set up a studio. And it works out real well because you can capture the screen in high resolution, which is nice. This is not connected to anything right now, but of course you can see how it works just like a regular radio here. And what we did is we added this little globe down in the lower left of the screen here. That is the connection screen for remote. Now, it shows up both. Any K4, by the way, can be a client or a server, if you want to call it that. And basically, you can make that decision if you want to make it that way. There's a menu entry. If you want to let it happen, you can say how many users. 0 means no. I don't want anybody to bug me during the contest, that kind of stuff. And it's very quick to set up too. But the key thing is, it's just once you set it up and you put in either the IP address, or in one case, Brandon is kg6ypi.com. That goes to him. It'll save it in there, and it's a one button press to bring it up. So I'll just show you really quick. So if I want to connect to Brandon, I think he's got it. I have it set on 40 meters for him. You see, I've got a whole list here. The top two, by the way, we scan the network internal, and that's from work, actually. That's 2 of our radios that were on test benches while this was going on, and they were plugged into the Ethernet. I could have really screwed up the text if I connected and the radio had a ghost in the machine, while they're trying to do something to it. But I'm nice to them. I don't do that. They usually get even if I do. So I've tried this a few times. Believe me, you don't want to let your other technicians get mad at you. You're not going to have a good life. It's tough. So that's Brandon's nickname to one of our guys. And so if I connect to him, I literally just highlighted that like we did there. I could connect myself, but I'll say Brandon right here and just say connect. And that's how long it took to connect. Now we're up. That's live coming from his place. And I can, just so I can find somebody here. You guys hear that? So that's all real time coming from my house. I mean, not from my house, from Brandon's house. Sort of cool. So that's real time pan adapter. You can have every feature in the K4. There's nothing left out. So it's not, you don't have to relearn anything basically to use it remote. You have the same user interface. It's pretty transparent. Now, one thing when you're using the internet, though, so if any of you played with remote stuff on internets or listening to remote receivers and things, with internet delays or dropouts, you usually want to maybe be able to adjust your buffers on each end in terms of how much you're buffering the audio and things. So we make it easy for you. Go back in this screen. This will give you a status of response time is like a ping, basically round trip. And you can see actually his is not perfect because he's totally off the grid. He's got a combination of Starlink, which he uses to keep his kids happy with high bandwidth stuff. And he has a terrestrial link that Starlink has a lot of handoff delays and things. As you guys have played with it, probably know. It works, but you have to get used to it. That's what they're using for these remotes, by the way, on the islands. And they do work out once you get used to it. A little bit longer delay. It's not going to be as real time as I have here. But the audio buffer is sort of the minimum buffer size that we're setting. That latency number is just a relative number. So the bigger the number, the bigger the buffer we set. What I typically do, we actually have an algorithm that tries to get down to whatever the minimum size your setting is. And you'll see it jump up when it takes a hit in the internet. So it'll compensate for that. So you don't get a lot of dropouts. And then slowly, as it sees it get better, say it was just a quick transient, it'll bring it back down. Well, the trick is to adjust that number down and watch the audio buffer size drop. And if it stays down there, that's a good place to be. If it keeps bumping up higher, you're going to hear more dropouts because we have to throw away data to make the buffer smaller again, though it's not bad. It's just little ticks, but you can play with that and sort of get it very smoothly while you're operating. So the conditions change while you're operating. Like I even go through a hotspot in my phone sometime when I can't get Wi-Fi to work wherever I am, which is not unusual these days. You go into a trade show and everybody's on the same frequency, as you guys know, at Pacificon. It doesn't work too well. So I always have that as a backup, which actually works real well either on 4G or 5G. 5G ultra wide is wonderful. That goes real fast. But so we have this little status screen. By the way, we have a Wi-Fi screen. So I scanned all of this stuff and saw what was local here. We're smart enough to deal with captured browser stuff. When you go to a hotel, you have to give them your room number and your name, things like that to get on the internet. We actually are smart enough to catch that, but we found that they all implement it differently. So Bonvoy for Marriott will work one way. Days Inn will work another way. Holiday Inn Express is another way. I do know Starbucks works great. They're the easiest one we had. So I go there a lot. So I'll sit there at Starbucks and freak people out while I'm working people from the table while I'm having a latte or something, which we've done. And I've also done mobile, but that's somebody else driving usually when I'm doing that. So I'm also a pilot. No, I'm not going to go aeronautical mobile with Starlink. Actually, I have Starlinks now to airplanes. I have a small Cessna and fly around in it. But I would only do that if I was a passenger. That would be sort of fun. Or actually, anybody a CQP person that does the California QSO party each year and to collect counties and stuff. I've always thought of hopping from county to county. That's for real operating, not from the air. But I could do it from the air just to keep in touch with people while I'm in the air. Yeah, that would really screw people up. I'm over this county right now. Oops, sorry, I'm in this county. I'm going by and flying around. So that's the Wi-Fi connection stuff there, and that's a work in process. Get back to we're still connected here, I think. Out of there. There we go. Or did I confuse it? When I must have taken it out of it. I must have be disconnected and reconnect. I think I took my Wi-Fi offline. That's what I do when I touch screens and not paying attention to what I'm touching. See, oh, there we are. Now we're back. You can go up and play with this afterwards. I'm not going to go through every single feature thing, because if you played with any of our radios, it has the same kind of UI as a K3 or K4. Certainly, it's identical, but it basically gives you a seamless remote with buttons. You can do it with the software apps, but they're usually a little more limited. They don't give you full access to the menus and everything else. It's just more than they wanted to incorporate. But when you go to this, you've got exactly the same control over your remote K4 that you would have if you were sitting in front of it. So that's what we're doing. And as you move into places where you can't put up antennas anymore, nasty neighbors, CCNRs, all that stuff that we deal with in Silicon Valley. My friends in Florida deal with it almost everywhere they go. So that this is becoming pretty popular, especially for like snowbirds that come down from the Northeast and want to operate, but they still want to run their big station back home, that kind of stuff. So lots of fun. So anyway, that's just a quick thing here. I'm not going to go through it heavily right now, but I can talk to anybody afterwards and show it more in detail. Get a feel. By the way, we have a carry bag for it. This just came in. So I've got a capability. You put the K40 in the bottom, and then you have in my case, a K-pod, a paddle, microphone, whatever else you want to put in the top. This fits under the seat of an airplane. That was the critical size. So you can, even on an Embraer, smaller commuter airline. So the idea is you can quickly throw it in the bag and take it with you. And those become real popular. I'm going to have to do another run of these real quick, plus we have people using them for other projects. So, multi-purpose. They've got movable and the top little dividers, and, Velcro stuff to hold it together. Sort of cool too. And that's it for that. So now I'm just going to switch over to the fun stuff, which is where you guys get to ask me any question you want. It can be about this stuff, future products. Now, I'm not going to tell you about the ones that are still secret, but we can talk about anything else. I know a troublemaker back there. Go ahead. I know you. Oh, he has to get a microphone to you. Hold on a second. He has to get a microphone to you. And I will tell you if I can't tell you or I don't know. I have no problem saying I don't know.
Hear some of them. Does it play well with Ham Radio Deluxe?
Absolutely. Yeah, what we did, if you guys have used any of our radios, we've got IO in the back that'll talk to almost all the logging programs and programs like Ham Radio Deluxe. When for K4, when is the same idea. There's in the back of the, it's very similar to what we have in the back of a K4. So if you connect your laptop or desktop computer at this, we have a USB connection in the back, USB-B. When you plug that into your computer, we give you, just like on the K4, two serial ports, which also have DTR, CTS, so you can key RTTY and CW into us manually if you want just straight key stuff coming in from your computer program for like say CW calls or whatever for your contest use. In addition to a built-in sound card. So it's just like you're connected to a K4. The only difference is we're pumping it upstream to the other one. It's all, the protocol supports that all the way up. So that doesn't lose anything. It's all TCP/IP. You're not going to lose anything. And it comes back, which is nice. It's also encrypted end-to-end, nothing super fancy. It's a TLS encryption end-to-end, but we can turn that off if people don't want it. There's a separate port, but most of the time I don't know the exact version. for just sending the data we're sending, it's not terribly critical, but yeah, we are password protected too, of course, too, on that. But actually a lot of people just run their stuff with the password of their call sign, which sort of shocks me a little bit, but that's not a good idea. people usually can figure that one out, at least if they're ham radio operators with a bad attitude. So, but anyway, basically all the I/O in terms of paddle input. We have our own protocol for CW. Basically, we're we basically use the same keyer engine in terms of the code that we have in the front of the panel of the K4, of course, same front panel. We take on a paddle for this, though, instead of just going directly into the transmitter and sending the dots and dashes from the paddle, we do the exact same side tone, so it's local, no delay, because you can't send with any delay. Your brain's just going to explode with. I've tried that one time. You just think, what's wrong with my CW today, right? But the bottom line is that it sends it up as tokenized dots, dashes, but also if you pause more than an interspace period between characters or elements, we'll timestamp that and maintain the sound of your fist at the other end, so that as long as your buffer is big enough, if you have what your delays and drop, retries are, that kind of stuff, it will give you a very clean sounding CW at the other end. We just had some people in the CQ Worldwide contest, CW, on our field test group operate this way, and it worked out pretty well for them. I mean, there's always things we can improve. We're always listening to what their feedback is. So you'll find all of these, as if there's anything that's a glitch at all, we'll fix that pretty quick. One cool thing, by the way, about these, all of our radios, well, thanks to the newer radios, the K4 and the K4D in particular, is your updates like updating your phone. I mean, literally, you can go to a screen here and say, check for updates. You have to be hooked up to the internet. But on this one, we've got Wi-Fi and Ethernet. The K4 has Ethernet on the back of it. And you can put a little Wi-Fi Ethernet adapter. I do that at home on the live bench sometimes. And say, check for new updates, and say, hey, you've got a new release or a new beta release. If you're living dangerously, you can do that. But we also let you back up, by the way. If you load the beta release and you don't like it because, oh, this feature I had isn't working right now, go back, and of course we'll have it fixed before it gets to the formal release, and then you could download it. And that's all. We don't charge you for the updates. I don't have any plans to in the near future, so you're safe for quite a while. So anyway, I/O is unique, not unique. I mean, the same as the K4, both for the audio and the data interface there. Other questions? Yes, sir.
What's the power draw on the remote head?
I heard a voice from somewhere. I can't see the. You're hiding back there. Say again.
What is the power draw on the K40?
K40, if it's just running the way it's now. By the way, this has an internal battery option. It's a 4-cell, 5 amp hour, basically 5,000 milliamp hour lithium ion pack. We've got a smart charger chip inside. That's the one that was giving me problems that we finally dealt with. It's no fun to see smoke coming out of a radio, believe me, but luckily it was in our lab, not yours. and yeah, but we had a very small number get out the door before that happened. So they're all being pulled back, and we have them turned in about 5 days and back to people. Luckily, we caught it right as we started shipping. And it's funny when you test in the lab and everything's perfect, and then it goes out the door. It's amazing what you find out. People do things different order, different setups. They pull power cords in the middle of operation, which, yes, that's not a good thing to do, but it shouldn't hurt the radio, those kind of things. And you have to make sure it's robust. So we went through and double checked everything now, and we're pretty happy with it. So the question again was, I'm sorry,
it was how much draw?
How much draw is roughly about between an amp, I'd say about 900 milliamps typically on a normal operating on there. So okay. You're going to, I'm sorry? Yeah, actually, that one there, you're right.
Zoom in on that. Can you zoom in on the radio?
Well, I'll bring it up here. That when you're connected to the remote, actually, that's showing what the actual radio at the other end is drawing. But if I disconnect, this is an undocumented feature, but if I go in here and disconnect, that will switch, I think. That's reading. Oh, no, what it's doing, it's charging the battery right now too. I enabled that. So it's running probably about an amp, 2.1 amps, but I'm charging that's 500 milliamps of that is charging the battery. So 1.6 amps, somewhere in that area, but not always that high. Usually it's about 800 to 900 milliamps if you're not charging the battery. So I've got a lot of stuff turned on right now. I get about 3.5 to 4.5 hours out of the battery. One thing I do carry with me, because we're also powered over USB-C, we have the option of either using a standard connector for Anderson Power Pole, 13.8 volts. That'll run everything, but we also have a USB-C connector only for power sourcing. The USB-Bs and stuff handle the data stuff for you guys. That was a power-specific one hookup for that. And that's because we also use USB-B, and it goes B to A or B to C, whatever you want on the other end. So it's not a problem hooking up to different computers. But the The neat thing to have is like, this is a, I don't know, 20,000. They claim it's 20,000 milliamp hours. No, it's not, but it's better than the 10,000 ones. It's in between somewhere. I'm amazed at how they spec these battery packs. Everybody uses a little different standard, and you have to actually try it and see how it works. This one's a pretty good one from Anker, though, so I'll get like another 5 hours of 4.5 to 5 hours of operation. Comes with a little lanyard that you pop it out. It's actually a USB-C cable, so I just plug it in the back if my battery's getting low, and I usually I don't recharge my battery from this because I want to keep operating. But middle of a contest, that's sort of nice to do if you're operating out portable somewhere.
Okay, got another question over here.
Which way? I didn't know where here is. I have to look. Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah, so my understanding is that both ICOM and Flex Radio for their remote capable models are only able to do the signaling that wakes the main unit, the server, from sleep over layer 2. Can you do it over layer 3?
Finally, you're talking about standard internet protocol.
Yeah,
layer
basically,
3?
can you do it using a pure software VPN without having to set up like a 0-tier type thing?
Well, waking it up, you're saying turning it on, physically turning the
Yeah,
radio on?
if it is plugged in
Yes.
at its site,
Yes.
but not turned on.
Okay, the way this radio, the K4 does, is it actually doesn't have, our amplifier does, but the K4 was designed, that part of it was designed before we actually started doing internet stuff where you could turn it on. There you could directly access it, like we have like for the remote amplifiers, you can turn them on remotely with an app that we give you. It goes back and forth between them. I think you have to open a port to do that to get through, but that's the only restriction. On the K4, you need to be able, you can do it. There's the trick that I use. There's a little add-on that one of my customers made. That, anybody knows N6 TV, Bob Wilson? Yeah. Those of you that are K4 owners know him because he's on my, not my reflector or discussion group, but on groups.io for the K4. He's the best non-paid tech support person I've ever had in my life. He's a retired IBM engineer, a very hyper contest guy, and very smart. And among other things, he's developed a little thing called the K-On, which plugs into our aux port in the back. And then what I use is an Amazon plug or something like that, and I power it up and down with that, because as soon as it sees power come on from your power supply, it'll pulse the radio and turn it on. It has to have a single pulse. I apologize. No, we didn't provide software capability on the K4 to go directly into it. That may change in the future, but that's where we are right now. So I use that for my station at home. It's also handy if you had a power outage that you don't have it go down, and you can always turn it off by software. It's not the other way around. Go ahead.
Do you have an antenna tuner built into it?
Yes, we do.
And what's the impedance range
The
over it?
Switched-L network on a 80 through, it covers 160 through 6, but from 80 through 10, it gives you a 10-to-1 match. I don't have many holes at all. Again, it's a Switched-L network, not a Pi or T or any of the less efficient ones. So you're pretty much always at a single solution on that. It's got a very smart algorithm on all of our radios. We use exactly the same topology from the 5-watt radios, a lot smaller inductors in those, obviously, and caps, all the way up to the 1500 amplifier, which gets really interesting. There we limit it to a 3-to-1 mismatch, not so much, well, it's a combination of the voltage and current you can get at the higher mismatches. You don't want that kind of fireworks taking off inside your amplifier. So you generally want to keep your SWR below about 3-to-1, but it'll match that on the 1500. On the K4, though, it'll match 10-to-1 on 80 through 10 and 5-to-1 on 160 and 6. And actually better in many places. That's worst case. So we'll actually do better than that on most matches, but that's going across the whole Smith chart, it does that. It works.
Any more questions?
It doesn't have to be about the K4. I mean, you can ask me about anything else.
Oh, we got Ben.
It could be suggestions, things that don't work. I don't care.
Yeah, this is half suggestion, half question.
Okay.
Have you considered using USB power delivery for the high power for the radios themselves?
Not yet. I mean, this is power delivery on this USPD. I'm using it. Actually, we sell a Anker, standard charger. It's a 30-watt charger, so that handles the charging the batteries and running the radios at the same time. And that's just 15 volts at 3 amps, so 45 watts. Inside for the other radios, we've thought about it, though. One of the challenges is a lot of people use some pretty dirty USB-C wall warts. Believe me, I know we've tried this, and that with a HF transceiver, especially the portable ones, the small ones you might want to use that with. Some guys run long wires right to it, right? Well, guess what? You're going to pick up everything that's coming in, that's getting on the case and everything else. So it's a bit of a challenge to get it clean. I mean, we can offer, better adapters and stuff that people would use. So we're looking at it, but it's not there yet in terms of in a radio environment.
Oh, oh, we got one over here. Stand by.
Don't be shy. I'm not embarrassable. At least I won't admit it.
You said you have a paddle in the bag. What paddle's in the bag?
The paddle is, this one's a heavy one. It makes it really heavy. It's one that we had made for us. I don't think it's made anymore. It's our friend from Long Island there in the back will probably recognize this. It's a it was the Bencher version of the Mercury paddle, I believe, the magnetic one. Is that what I'm thinking of? Is it the correct one? You can probably recognize it, but it's a nice paddle. I like it. I use it at home. I have this in a Shure portable wobbler, and I like the portable wobbler. It's a lot lighter. It's brass, but has plenty of weight to operate with. This thing's a tank. I just brought it because it was fun to show off. But come take a look at it. It's neat. We don't sell it anymore because he no longer makes it. But that said, yes, sir.
Yeah. What are you going to do when you come out with the new model? Baofeng and all them Chicoms, they got K5 and K6 already patented and
No, we have a little
copyrighted.
different philosophy. What we do is we add new features to the radios, and some of them are plug-in boards that you pay for, things like the HD option. So you have a K4. You can upgrade all of our radios from a base K4, which has one analog to digital converter, so you can still listen on two frequencies at once, but on one antenna at the same time. K4D has two analog digital converters and digital down converters. So you can have two antenna sources and do everything from listening to two different bands on optimized antennas and so on. K4 HD gives you that additional front end with two receivers also. So you can switch that in like a noise blanker. So that will be that card. So we give you an upgrade path that way rather than making you junk your old radio each time. I come out with a new radio every couple of years. So we tend to get, the K3, I think, lasted from 2007 to 2019, believe it or not, between the K3 and the K3S. We let you upgrade most of the way to a K3S with add-on synthesizers that were quieter. We came up with a new design when we did the K3S, and they were plug-in modules. And so if you come up with some magical, affordable, 24-bit RF sampling, at 400 megahertz A to D, sure, I'll do something for you. That's going to be probably out of our price range for a while, unless you're military or something. So, but that said, that's our sort of philosophy on that. Not that I won't do a new radio at some point, but this one's our main radio for some time. So we're not going to abandon you with not supporting that radio. By the way, we bring out software updates even on the K4 at least a couple times a year, if not more. And yeah, sure, there's minor glitches, people find some things like that, but that generally is with new features that we add to it because people request, hey, can it do this? Or, they see the capability of the radio and they say, gosh, if I had that in this menu here or something like that, it could make it easier to use. So we're constantly sneaking those things in. We can't promise them all because the list is so long. People, you'd be amazed, Ham. So you have amazing things they want in the radios, but we like to surprise people. So you'll see, you go check for software update and it'll actually, you can get a download and look at it, play with it. Like I said, you can go back to the prior version, prior software release if you want. That's always available. But we also include release notes so you can see what features are in there so you can go play with them, which is sort of fun. And that's true for that's true for our other radios like the KX line and the KH1. We have utilities for those that run on PCs and Macs. And I believe we used to have a guy that would convert them to Linux. I'm not sure if we've done it for the KH1 yet, but those typically run on those three platforms. And you can basically you basically download a file off our server and then hit download over serial and it'll update them that way too. What else we got? I saw some other hands up here earlier here, but so okay, he's got the mic. So you have to steal the mic from him next, right?
Yeah, I know. I already asked the question. You mentioned that that it exposes two serial ports to the computer when you connect it over USB.
Yes, they're independent.
Yeah, I've sort of three related questions about
Okay.
that. One is, do they expose different functionality to each other?
No, we say to each other.
Like, do they have different capabilities, or are they the same? Are they just
They
perfectly?
are not wired together, if that's what you're thinking.
No. So like
You can have two different software apps talking to the radio at the same time. Of course, they can both send commands to the radio. The last one will win if they're sending the same command for frequency or something.
Right.
Like that.
Like some radios, like one serial port can support audio and the other can only support CAT or something like
Oh
that.
gosh, no. These are both well, audio. There's only one sound card, so that's coming in through a separate path. So that's it will look like you plug this in. You're going to see on your computer, your Mac or on your PC. You're going to see an additional sound card show up, and you're going to see two COM ports that are independent show up.
Gotcha.
The good part about it is if you have two programs, and a lot of people really don't write well event-driven code. So if they see a response they're not expecting, some programs crash or get really screwed up. Well, in this case, all of our I/O, like on the K4, you actually have for legacy or legacy serial RS-232 port. You've got 2 COM ports, and you've got all sorts of virtual ports on the Ethernet interface. You actually can, for WSJT, a lot of guys use that, but only one sound card if you want to do that, but inside the radio. But the neat thing is you can have multiple apps hooked up, and as long as they play well in terms of not trying to tell the radio to change frequency at the same time and things like that, and you usually have control over that. They might be getting data for logging, for instance, for your contest program or for WSJT, those things. It works pretty nicely. So all those things don't collide with each other by trying to send their response data out on all the ports. It's just the one that asked for it, which is nice.
And so the follow-up to that is, do they have separate identifiers beyond what the operating system assigns them? And the reason I ask that is because on Windows and Linux, typically, they tend to be sticky, but on Mac OS, they will sometimes switch.
No, I don't think they do. I'm not sure. If there's a way to do that, I'm not the expert in that part of the area. So
I don't know either.
yeah, usually, yeah, I haven't run the big problem with that, though. Generally, I don't get too many complaints there. Actually, behind the person in green, because you've gotten a couple of questions, I'll come back to you in a second. There's somebody patiently waving his hand in the back.
Okay, now
There.
Keith's in the queue, and this gentleman here.
Okay, and why don't you help me look for him, because I can't
Yeah.
see him. You're probably seeing more than I am. I'm staring at this crowd of faces. So.
More of a comment than a question. I've noticed that on Windows, certainly Windows 11, Justin, they do bounce around on reboots sometimes, but sometimes they don't. So it's kind of up in the air. If you're working with N1NM and WSJT, what you're actually doing is WSJT, if you interface it with N1NM, it's actually communicating through a TCP port, a local one.
Which is fine. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And then that is using DX Lab Suite, DX Lab Commander Suite, which is a set of libraries. That's what actually is keying or operating the radio from WSJT.
That's great.
So basically, but what I don't like is the fact that they sort of forked that process. They forked the WSJT from N1NM, and it's dependent as opposed to independent, right?
Yeah.
So if one dies, it basically crashes everything.
Oh, that's not good.
So that's not good. So anyway, have made comments to Tom N1NM,
Yes.
and I'm not sure he's.
Well, they've got, that's
tons of competing,
Well, for the money you pay for it.
With the money you
Great,
pay for it,
it's a great deal.
Exactly. So I'm not going to, but otherwise, when it works well. We actually did that with Pacificon. We used WSJT. I know that Christopher has a K3S, and I think he did that as well. So anyway, we actually had them all networked together and everything. So
oh, wow.
Just more of a comment than anything else.
Yeah.
But thanks, Eric. Always great to see you presenting stuff here.
Well,
It's really
thanks.
cool.
One of the way, interesting thing I mentioned earlier, that the Ethernet port supports multiple connections. So, for instance, I've had W6IZT did this. He had 2 WSJT implementations at the same time talking over Ethernet with it. Obviously, trading off using the sound card, but they were both listening to the audio stream, so one could be listening while the other one is transmitting, and that worked out fine. So, the sound card doesn't go over TCP. That's going to be over. I may think it doesn't. No, I don't think so for the data stream, but they can also listen to the streaming data if they want, because we actually publish that protocol too, streaming audio. So, and also pan adapter stuff.
Okay, next question is Keith here.
Go ahead, sir.
Basically, comment rather than question on the KX3. It does work well with the PD cable.
Oh, really?
Coming from a power brick, I forget the capacity on it, but it'll basically push a nice 12 volts into it, and you'll get up to about 10 watts.
Oh, wow!
And I don't have a lot of noise coming in from it.
That's great.
It's quite portable, and I use it in multiple ways to feed the power to it. But this one PD cable I bought off from Amazon had the wrong connector on it. I believe you're using a 5.5 by 2.5 barrel connector, if I remember right.
It's a 2.1 millimeter.
Is it 2.1 then?
2.1.
Okay, so the one that I had was coming off as a 2.5, and I got an adapter for it.
You wiggle that,
and I got an adapter for it that takes it from the 2.5 to 2.1, and then just printed off a paper that told that it's a 12 volt output, and then use some marine grade heat shrink tubing which of course has the hot glue in it.
Yeah.
Shrinks down that connector, holds it on. It'll never come off from the PD cable now, and it's made specific for the KX3.
That's great. Well, afterwards, you let me get the information on the one you're using, so I'll get one to play with. That
You got
would be
it.
nice. Okay.
No problem.
Then I can convince Wayne that USB-C is not evil. So I like it. So
I have two different questions. One is, do you run, and the answer may be obvious to many people, but do you run DPD?
I'm sorry, run what?
Digital predistortion
On the K4?
or on anything?
On anything, not yet. I've got that under development. I had to get all this stuff out the door first. We're not a gigantic company. We keep a pretty tight shop in terms of number of developers, but that's actually on the list. So you'll see that some point from us. Again, that's a software update. We did provide in the K4 all the feedback requirements in terms of real time, both looking at the 100-watt output. Our 1500-watt amplifier even has a tap on that. I think it's, I don't know if it's 30 or 40 dB down, whatever the standard is. For looking at the envelope or what's going on, not just the envelope, the whole thing. You need phase 2 or you're in big trouble.
Yeah. And I guess my sort of follow-on question is, you asked earlier how many people here own a K4, and I think there were 2 hands. So then the logical follow-on question is, how many people do we need to get together in a group buy to get a significant discount?
Thousands. No, that's tough for us because we sell direct. There's no retail channel where you can sort of squeeze a little bit harder on it. Generally, the only people that really get any discount on them, I have a couple of distributors overseas, but it's not a huge discount. They actually mark up over the US price. And that's also because we have to do, of course, CE certification with them too, which is very expensive, which is not fun for me. But that said, it's good to make sure the radio is clean so it doesn't emit a whole bunch of stuff.
A little bit.
Yeah. You never know. We make package deals. If you look on the website, there are things we could do with that too. So if you can get 5 or 10 people together, I'll talk to you and we'll see if we can do something. It's not going to be 50% off. I don't have that kind of margin. I wish I did. Yeah. Ham radios. Actually, it's interesting. We've just as a general comment with tariffs, of course, we've been impacted quite heavily in terms of cost. Heat sinks, which only really came from Asia to the most extent. There are a few companies in the U.S., but actually their quality was not very good. So years ago, we had to go offshore. Those have more than doubled in price. And we're talking in a 1500-watt amplifier. It's not a cheap heat sink. So we're talking hundreds of dollars of increase cost. So do the math. It's going to trickle out eventually. I've held off on a lot of it, but it's getting pretty squeezed on this stuff. So I'm just holding my breath to see what, hopefully things settle out a little bit. We'll see what happens here. I'm sorry, there was another question. I think
You answered my question. I was kind of curious how much the tariffs have, affected your business.
Yeah, I lose sleep over it.
But do you want to give any percentages or anything? I mean,
let me say percentage on the tariffs.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, how much does your bill of goods is impacted? By what percentage?
Oh,
your bill
gosh, I
of
can't give
goods?
you an exact number. Fortunately, we're all built in the U.S. The fabrication of or the assembly of the circuit boards is all done by companies in Silicon Valley or over in the Monterey Bay Area. Sheet metal is all done stateside. Of course, aluminum comes from all around the world. And unfortunately, the net market price, sort of like oil, even though maybe they're using U.S. aluminum, the prices all match what the stuff is with the tariffs coming in. So that anything with aluminum is a minimum of 50% increase in cost. I mean, that's just mind-boggling. Even I had a backdrop for the trade shows we use, and we stretched this fabric over it. And that whole thing came from China. We ordered those years ago. Then they charged us tariffs on the aluminum in the support. I wasn't even buying it to manufacture. So it's pretty crazy. And some of it you can't predict. It's getting a little better on that side. They're finally getting integrated into the tariff system. But a lot of the POs we place, they come back confirmation saying, okay, here's the price today, plus whatever we get, whatever the tariff is when it arrives. So that's sort of if those of you in business, so that's a real hard thing to deal with when you're trying to plan a business around that, when your costs move around so much. But so far we've survived it. It's been painful, but we're still here. Yes. Oh, and microphone? Where's the microphone? Oh, yeah, let him go first then, and then go back to you.
Yeah, I guess 2 things. So first of all, if you look at the soda reflector, there's a great little PD board somebody's developed that they're getting a small batch on for USB-C. With
Okay,
the
I'll look at that. I'll
machine
look at
head
that too.
I'd love to see that go internal. The other thing I would say is
That was my argument, and I want to have it internal also.
I mean, again, brings noise on, and I know that
Yeah.
they've reported some noise issues when charging.
I see.
Using the prototypes on that. So I think,
It's
we're
a
gonna have to
challenge.
bite a bullet. There's going to be, depending on what the adapter.
They're pretty much going to be running buck boost regulators on that afterwards, or in it, depending
Right,
what they're
right.
using. So you have to shield that really well and have clean stuff, because it's
Right,
just
right.
a big switching, radiating box
Yeah.
that you have to be careful about. But that said, I'm sure there's clean ones out there. So like you were pointing out earlier. So
The other thing I would say is that like SodaCat has been great, and I'd love
Yeah.
I'd love to not have a dongle for that. Are you guys looking at incorporating that kind of functionality? onto the mobile
anything's
devices?
possible. I don't think anything's on the table right now. We've looked at that, but I just haven't had time to even deal with it. Believe me, we we have more ideas than we can ever develop. It's a little tough that way, but you never know. The dongles aren't that big, are they? They're pretty small. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's one more thing to break. That's true.
Yeah, you said it had two COM ports.
Yeah.
Is it locked on COM 1 and 2 like the
No,
other
no, it's not. It's
300
it's
things I
assigned-
have?
No, it's assigned by the AOS.
Okay. Does it have a URT chip in it?
I'm sorry, or what?
A URT that
I-
it's an IO chip that.
Okay. Well, it's God, where's the chip? I forget where the chipset's from. It's a standard COM port chipset.
Okay, it's probably a URT.
It's a standard one. What are the preferred drivers under Windows? The FTDI. Yeah, it's an FTDI based chipset. Now, believe me, I the early stuff we did in the K3, we were using external cables because that was URS-232 and they were not FTDI. I'll never repeat that mistake again. That was painful. But no, we standardized on that years ago.
So Ben, anybody on Zoom answer up for questions? Anybody on Zoom have questions? Come on.
I think we wear everybody out. Good.
So
There's
it was
another hand over here, but
got it. It was brought to my attention about this young lady in, I think it's Southern California, and she does sodas and podas, and she takes her cat with her. And when she gets up to there, she literally takes her cat with her. And when she gets up there, she's using a KX1 and doing CW. It's pretty fun to watch. You can get her on YouTube.
oh, I'd have to check that out.
Yeah. Ah,
Oh, I was waiting for that.
the question was, does she have cat control?
This is just sort of a tech follow-up to your question about the USB ports. A lot
Okay.
of the TDI chips have internal EEPROMs, and so you can program your own device IDs if they don't do it. So anyway, you can set the params that allow you to make the ports sticky or identify them.
That's good to know. Okay. Any other questions?
Justin's
Oh,
got one
okay,
here.
okay.
I'm going to rib you a little bit and say it's 2025. Please support something other than passwords on a server client protocol. Please. I'm
What-
tired of
what-
failing things off in my network.
What kind of things would you expect?
Public key pair, certificates, Ouija board, something.
Yeah, it's not a web login, but yeah, I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Um,
It's a straight TLS handshake. You know the drill.
yeah, I like you, but I don't trust you to have implemented a proper back off protocol to prevent, effective password cracking. It's a very
Sure.
hard problem to solve.
Oh, it
and
is,
You're not Google, and they've done a decent job of it.
Yeah.
You mentioned that your sheet metal and your PCB fab is stateside.
Yeah.
I actually had a very, very hard time finding those services stateside.
Really?
That
In
are
Silicon Valley or
that are still good quality.
Oh, I'm picky about that too. I've
Yeah.
got ones I've been using for the last 10, 15 years.
I'm curious if you might share a name.
Was one group that's actually uses several fabs. There's what's one? Proto Specialties is really good. They do actually one of the best assembly jobs I've seen, and I use a group called Group 7, and they do purchasing and also act as the sort of overall envelope for turnkey on the circuit board assembly for me. And they work with us just like we're in the same company. We have a weekly meeting where they're talking to our engineers, talking to our purchasing people, so on. And the small company, they're not giant one. They have their own fab that does some of our stuff, but the best one I've worked with is Proto Specialties and stuff. We had one place where we kept getting failures on relays. And these were relays that were actually designed to be power washed and get the flux off, the water soluble flux. And they kept saying, I kept saying, you guys are doing something wrong here. You guys are doing something wrong. And they would, they would change the temperature profiles. They would do all this stuff, but something wasn't right. I ended up giving up and going to Proto Specialties. I never saw a problem after that. It just disappeared. So I know what you're talking about. There's a wide range of quality. But once we get somebody that's good, we stick with them. We're pretty loyal and we get good quality that way.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. They're in the Valley. They're not cheapest. I mean, they're not going to be, if you want good quality, that's what it's going to be. Yeah. For them, $1,000 a month is prototype, so they can handle it pretty much anything, I think.
Okay, I see Bob pacing over there, so we're okay.
We're not running low on time. I was going to jump in with a question, but I see Chuck has
Okay.
one first.
Sure, I think Chuck was up here, huh?
As long as my voice survives, I'll go as long.
Thanks, Rob. Unrelated question. You
Yeah.
guys ever considered making a receiver? I dare say it would be a humdinger.
Oh, just a standalone receiver? It's a possibility. Gosh, the one thing to be clear on is, especially in the higher end products, it might be too expensive for the people that buy receivers in the market. And ICOM does a pretty good job for the general purpose, SWL. But, I thought about that from time to time, but I don't think it's a good match for us right now. Yes, sir.
So about 82.3795% of the questions here today were about Windows and networking and power supplies and so forth. What's happened to ham radio? No, but really, it's a testament to the quality of your radio part of everything that you do, that it just works. So
Well, that's the idea.
clearly the case.
Yeah. We get a lot of good input from people too. I mean, if things don't work, we hear about it right away with the internet. This has been true for years, but you can't hide. So we use, you're motivated very quickly to fix things if you find stuff, or you can optimize it better if you see where people are having trouble figuring it out. So that's been a good vehicle for us. And I've been I've been marketing on the internet since the early 90s. I had a company called Verisys that made, back when SCSI was a parallel protocol, which is probably one of the worst specified protocols in the world to work with. So you need protocol analyzers to find the problems when you hook different manufacturers' drives together. They would glitch out and the people be freaking out because Apple says, I'm not going to take it until you fix this problem. And it's not their problem. It's the other guys. We could point the finger at who that was. And we sold that over the internet, and it actually was a wonderful vehicle back when there was text bulletin boards and things, before we had Netscape and all that stuff. So I was able to ride that through, but I saw how well it works. So I've always been doing direct through the internet ever since then for everything, support and so on. We actually have real people that answer the phone too, so that's nice. We're not doing any bots or anything. No bots.
Okay, got another question here?
Sure, and thanks for coming. Slightly different question. You talk a lot about your products, but you don't ever talk about your company. I know it's privately held, but just give us the envelope of what the company is all
Well, we're a privately held company. Wayne Burdick and I are still the primary shareholders in it. I have no major outside shareholders at all. The only debt is probably net payable to our vendors and stuff. I self-funded it when we started it, though I got all my cash back out in the first year. I'd learned enough in that first company how to do a nice cash flow based business, though that means you're also not bringing in venture capital, so you're not going to be doing the hockey stick growth. And the ham radio market's not that kind of market anyway. So you have to recognize you're in a niche market. And so we also, I learned from the prior business, you have to have margin to be able to survive. And I know I've always been tempted, and also a number of other hams who have started ham radio companies have gone away because they underpriced their product while they're still doing it in the basement stage. Yeah, it's easy. You can make a lot of money short term by yourself, but if you scale up just a little bit, all of a sudden, anybody that's started business here, I'm sure there's a few of you, it's very hard to scale without having more overhead pop up and your expenses go up quickly. And if you already have set the expectations down here with pricing, you're in big trouble. And that's a real big problem. So we felt, hey, you got to get some value for that too. So we try to give you value in terms of how the radios work, how the user interface works, and that makes it much more attractive to people. So we also use customers for marketing. My first 100 K2 customers, how many K2 owners we have in here? We had a few of you, or I know we had some before. Maybe they've all sold them to somebody else by now. That was our first radio. We still sell it. It's like a Rick Heath kit. You can solder everything in it. The 100-watt PA, we've not able to get parts anymore for that particular design. So it's a 10-watt radio, and you have to use our 100-watt external amp for it. But very clean radio. People still love it. They use it for de-expeditions and stuff. That one, our first 100 customers, or field testers, you want to call them, signed up. We gave them a 10% discount on the price to do that for us at that time. And this is when we were first just doing the very first products, and if we guaranteed if anything had to come back, I'd give them new boards and they could, or parts, whatever they needed to fix the problem. Well, that all went really well. January 1999, the first ones trickled out the door. I think we shipped all 100 from my basement in about 2 weeks. I had one technician kitting the things for us, and we got those out there. But once those all worked, we had the best sales force in the world, which is word of mouth and amateur radio. So we very much are aware these days of all the discussion groups. I don't run them all. People assume every Elecraft discussion group on groups.io is run by us. We don't run any of them. The only one we run is the Elecraft at mailman.qth.net. But we do participate occasionally on the other ones, but we're not watching all the time. We just can't keep up with that. But we are paying attention. So I usually have other people also that alert us, hey, you need to see this thread over here, either good or bad. There's ideas we get. I mean, we get new product ideas from that. So we're always paying attention. But anyway, getting back to the size, it's not a gigantic company, but it's also not tiny. We've got it under, varies between where we are in production cycles in terms of we bring some temp workers in that work for us doing assembly. So it'll range anywhere from the, say 40 to 50 range, and everything else I use subcontractors for in terms of, like I said, the assembly of the circuit boards. I don't need to have surface mount equipment. Our volume is not going to be able to amortize the cost of that equipment very quickly. So that's sort of our approach to it. And it's worked for 26 plus years. So it's not an overnight fluke. So we keep doing it. And I know it's working well, because if I go to Japan and go to the trade shows, I get surrounded by all the ICOM and Yaesu people. It's sort of like a wall, I can get through it and see their radios, but it's pretty funny. We're not anonymous anymore. That was fun when we were anonymous, but they figured out who we were pretty quickly. Anything else, or let me get you guys get on with?
One last go around. Any last questions
Yeah,
here?
question here,
Or on
too.
Zoom?
Oh.
Yeah, we'll get you, Bob. Any? Okay, Bob, you're up. Oh, Andy, let me get Andy here.
Do you use lead-based solder or lead-free solder for your circuit?
We have to use lead-free for Europe. It's RoHS. You can repair anything you want here if you want with leaded solder. That's not a problem, and it won't be a problem for us. But we have to manufacture with lead-free, and that's now evolved to the point where, from the assembly of the houses and everything else, and also our in-house work, we don't see any problems. We don't see tin whiskers or any of the things that happened in the early days with it. I'm not putting stuff in satellites, so it's not stressed the same as those were. But for those who've been around long enough, in the early days of RoHS's reduction of hazardous substances is standardization that came out of Europe, sort of like CE for testing, but we have to comply with that. Okay, one more. Oh, we still.
Yeah, hey, Eric, this is not a, I'm sure you saw this. I was curious if you guys are looking at a similar design to what the Flex Aurora is doing.
Yeah, I'm very familiar. Somebody else asked me that.
Yeah, I was wondering what your take is on.
I think it's a very elegant, neat design. It means you have to buy a $500 watt radio, which
right.
That's also a lot of in one package. Quite a lot going on. I don't think it's shipping yet, is it? I don't think he has it out the door. They're taking orders, obviously, on it. It really, whenever a new radio gets announced, we always will see a reaction by the customers. They pause, right, on certain purchases, and you see a little change in order rate. But usually within about 3 or 4 months, it comes right back to where it was for us before. So in our case, it recovered very quickly. I haven't seen a major sucking sound on our sales, which is good. But I think, but the bottom line, I saw that design, I think even before Flex saw it. The guys that actually came up with the polar, not the idea of polar modulation, that was around for a while, but with the implementation, it requires an integrated transmitter very tightly coupled with it to work. Otherwise, and we were more interested in that kind of thing for a standalone amplifier. But for a multi-band standalone amplifier, I think you and I were talking about, you've done some Class D stuff many years ago on amplifier. Think about that, trying to make one work on all the different bands and all the different things you have to do to accommodate that, more than one octave, multi-octave frequency range.
One of our members is Miko, and he actually explained how that whole circuit worked. It's pretty impressive.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
No, we looked at it.
Not easy, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, for us, I would have been interested if I could do it standalone amplifier, because 500, we sell a very economical standalone 500 watt amp right now. Of course, it's linear, but so it's not as efficient. But bottom line is, it also fits the pocketbook for a lot of hams too. So we do well. So you never know what we might do in the future. Certainly, the QRP guys are experimenting with it, and that's great. One thing, by the way, I'm not announcing this as a feature, but we implemented a controlled envelope single sideband, or I may have mentioned that last year, but that's been a big hit for us. This is something that Gary Hirschberger, W9GR, he did the original LMS noise reduction kit that was in QST years and years ago. I built one of those. But he published something in QEX a number of years back, 2 or 3 years, taking some of the stuff he had done in commercial broadcast, but then extrapolating into amateur radio to basically get around the problem for most compressors. There are RF Clipper compressors that we all have been doing either in DSP or in hardware. Create a lot of audio distortion if you crank them way up. And they also cause, because you have to filter them, because you're clipping an audio waveform, you're going to get a big overshoot on output of that filter when it rings. Your ALC in the radio fights it a little bit also, so you don't get the maximum you could get out of a regular compressor, the old style. And we all had that in the radios. But when we did this, we followed his deal. He basically has an algorithm because it takes advantage of the delay line in your DSPs. It's very fast, but from a computational standpoint, we can get rid of the overshoot. There's a lot of and it's a very simplified discussion here. I'm not giving you the whole thing how it works, but bottom line, he just published the algorithm, not the code. So we had to code it and tie it into our stuff. And what we found, and the ARRL confirmed, we were getting 6 to 8 dB of additional gain out of the system without any more stress on the amplifiers. I mean, a little bit because you're in a little bit higher average power, but we were designed for continuous duty if we had to run it for, or semi-continuous duty. And you're going to pause when you talk, so it's that we don't have a problem with that. So the net result is it's like having almost like a 500-watt amplifier built into the radio when you've got that in there. It's huge. And it didn't cost anything. We actually gave that as a free update to the software. So that's in the K4. And the question I'm answering, because I'm sure some of the QRP guys are going to say, when are we going to put this into the QRP radios, the KX2, KX3? We've thought about it. I just have to have time to get it in there. Now the good news is we're using the same family of ADSP 21479. We have a 479 in the KXs and a 489 on the K4. So it doesn't take up all that much bandwidth. So it would work great. And obviously on QRP, especially on sideband, you need it because we on CW, a lot of people use CW on QRP, is we can use real narrow filters on the other end. So you get a much better signal to noise ratio. So it's about a 10-to-1 advantage on average between a sideband bandwidth and a CW bandwidth. So you sort of get that free boost if you think about it on CW because they can use a narrow receiver on you. Well, this gives that to you on sideband in terms of a boost of actual average power, which is nice. And it's noticeable. What's nice is there's less distortion too. You really can't tell it's on this. I crank it all the way up on ours. You can tell it's there, but it's not objectionable. It's just, oh yeah, you're running compression. I don't care. I can understand you find it's, if you turn it off, they say, where'd your amplifier go? So, you turn it down to 0 and our compression basically turns it off. So sort of cool. That was one of the nice ones that was really fun to do. So I'd say sometime in the future you might see that, but not in the next 2 months or though. It's gonna be I know I got the thumbs down over here. It's not instant. I'm just thinking about it because I've got other projects we have to finish. So get those out first, then we'll pivot back to that. Do we ever get your question over here? No.
We'll get to me, and we're getting to about the time where we probably should wrap up.
Where's the hook?
Question.
I'll duck here.
I'm going to ask you. My question was a little bit non-technical. You had mentioned the case that you had up there, and that it was designed to fit underneath an airline seat, and remembering the handheld and all the little design things that went into that, so that it's got hidden pencils and places for the logbook and all of that sort of stuff. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that you guys put into the design of the products. And I was just curious if maybe you could talk about how you approach that. Do you have any a designer or somebody who kind of looks after that part of the product, or are you guys all just like super cool? And
we're super cool.
Okay, awesome.
No, to answer, we're users too. I mean, be honest, when you take any hobby, ham radio in my case, I mean, I started like when I was 14 years old. And gosh, I don't want to tell you how many years it's been now, but it's been quite a while, more than 50, but way more. But the bottom line is, because of that, we still have a big interest in it. I don't get on the air as much as I used to, though actually more now because I can get on when I'm on the road. I work more DX from a booth in a trade show than I do at home, but I still do it. So we actually have an appreciation for what it is. And when these sort of came out, like the ones on K4s, we made a clamshell case of foam that, heavy duty, it goes around it in a nice zipper fabric case. You can drop that off of you can check it in luggage and watch it come off the airplane and fall on the tarmac. You know how I know? I watched mine go down there. I was carrying it on, and they made me check it one time, the overheads were full. And I go, great, okay, no problem. Then I'm getting off the plane by looking out the window, and I see this thing going, thud, and it bounced. And no, didn't bother it at all because we had put the same dense foam that we use. It compresses nicely. There's a clamshell around it, so there's just no way you could you could run over a truck and it would be a problem. But I can't stop that. But that one even fits under the seat with the K4. It's a little tight, but you can do it. It certainly fits in the overhead, and they don't question it. That's not your carry-on. That's your other item, which is interesting. Yeah, so that works out nice. Same thing for these, and these are actually smaller. So, but anyway, the way I have two things. I've got we've just found some good people, and they're usually offshore for these kind of things. They can be in Vietnam, they can be in China, they can be anywhere. Fortunately, they're not terribly expensive in terms of the tariffs, which is good. They're not penalizing sewing yet. It may happen someday, but maybe for jeans, we'll see. But the design though comes from us. We design it up. They then implement prototypes, and then we turn it once or twice with them. My number 2 in the company, Margaret Wold, is not a ham, but she's got a good design sense. And so she actually drove this. She and I sat down and sort of sketched out what I wanted, and then she implemented it with the vendor and actually came up with a really good design. And then we iterated it once or twice, and there you go.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it must be really satisfying to both all the technical stuff and the way everything works. That's great to see it work. It's really satisfying to be able to see people use it. But even those aspects, that must be really nice to.
It's pretty cool. And we got a real passionate team. I mean, the engineers doing the design here take this really seriously. This is not just a job. It's, they really want it to work right because it's peers that are seeing it and everything else out there. So that helps out a lot too. So we have a lot of fun with it. It keeps me smiling most of the time. When chips are exploding, usually I'm not happy, but after that goes away, usually I'm happy. That doesn't happen too often, fortunately. So, all done?
Great. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Being here.
Yeah. By the way, after you guys finish the other stuff, I'll leave this up here. I'll be glad to talk to people and show it off, or punch buttons, let you punch buttons, and so on. So there you go. But I'll shut up now and let you guys get on with it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to have you here.